So I just got the notification that recording in progress, and so I'm going to ease on into our presentation. Thank you to all of our students and families that are here with us. This is the second webinar of the college series for San Ysidro Union High School District. And so this webinar is entitled Finding Your Fit in Building a Balanced College List. This will be recorded for families to refer back to or for families unable to attend, and it will be available on the San Ysidro Union High School District College and Career webpage. As I spoke to, this is the second of series of 5, and so there are many resources that are available on the San Ysidro College and Career website. There are recordings from last year's College and Career Night, as well as a wealth of resources to support students and families as they aspire to great things and plan for their futures. Next up, we'll have the UC personal questions and major choices. Then we'll continue on to the Cal State campus options, and then we'll conclude with updates. It's a big year. There have been big changes for the FAFSA, and so you definitely want to attend the financial aid night should you be applying this academic year. And so before we get truly underway, let's do some introductions. My name is Dr. Megan Corazza. I am a counselor on special assignment with San Ysidro Union High School District. My focus area is on engagement, connectedness, social, emotional wellness. This is my 20th year as a counselor. I love the work as much as when I started. I've worked in large urban districts. I've worked abroad internationally as a college counselor. I've worked in the Bay Area. Most recently, I worked 6 years in Carlsbad Unified as a counselor, and I am so fortunate to transition to my role with San Ysidro, and I'm very much excited to support students in my work in the COSA position. Unfortunately, my LCC colleague was unable to make it, but I think we're still going to have rich discussions with my admissions colleague, Corinne Schell. She will introduce herself and speak a little bit more about the school that she represents and her background.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it, Megan. My name is Corinne Schell. I'm actually Director of Alumni Admission Programs at Marist College. For any of you who are not familiar with Marist, our main campus is located in New York, about an hour and a half north of New York City. We're a private 4-year liberal arts school with about 5,600 undergraduate students. We also have a campus in Florence, Italy, which is pretty neat. I am a graduate, my husband's son, daughter, sister, niece, nephew, twin nieces, so I'm very passionate about Marist and really all that it provides our students. And it's great to see students entering the college and leaving as these amazing adults and really conquering the world. We are Division I for athletics, and yeah, check it out. You'll be pleasantly surprised. We're that little gem that many people are not aware of, but once you do the research, you're going to hear that word tonight, again, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
So I wanted to make sure you all had access to this lovely slide depicting Marist's beautiful campus on the East Coast, but I do want to go back to, for our families that have recently joined us, we invite you to ask questions. Those questions will be sent directly to the presenters, and at the end, we'll curate responses to the most commonly asked questions. They will be more generalized questions. We can't answer questions to specific situations, but we definitely can refer you to additional resources should families need it. And again, it's just to honor the integrity and the confidentiality of all families. And so tonight's agenda, what we're looking at, we do want to ground our work in building that best fit college list with those features that represent an individual's long-term goals and who they are and how they learn best. And so we're going to begin with a discussion of how do we do that within the context of self-awareness. We'll be discussing how to positively frame opportunities and again, focus on the student so they understand that the student has many opportunities and we want to support them in identifying those best fit factors, and many institutions that have those, they'd be thrilled to have them down the line. And so again, we want to frame positive options aligned aligned with, again, what your student really wants in their post-secondary education experience. And so again, we'll come back to that grounded list, really designed to represent all the things your student and your family would like them to have when they continue their education. And then also resources to support your student in building that list, researching that list, aligning again with all those best fit features. And then again, we'll conclude with Q&A. And so let's come back to this notion of self-awareness. And this is very much my wheelhouse in my counselor position with the district. And so really we want students and families to kind of think about what are the motivations to go to college. For many of us, we think it's the next step, it's the rite of passage right into young adulthood. But I definitely want to encourage students to reflect on if this is the right time, if they're eager to learn more and explore different topics beyond what was available to them in their high school curricula. And so just be cognizant of the why. This does not mean you need to know definitively what you want to study. You can go into college undeclared, and I'm sure Ms. Schell will speak to that. But then also, you don't need to know what you want to do after college. But again, just being in a position where you do want to commit yourself to study, as well as identifying an institution, a community that you want to be a part of, and where you're going to thrive for those next steps into adulthood. And so just be mindful of that why. For some of our students, maybe not beginning right away after high school is the right choice for them. But again, you really do want to reflect on if this is the right time and the why behind continuing your education. We definitely want to encourage students to be mindful of how college aligns with those future goals. And so again, it doesn't have to be a clear pathway. It could just be an idea that I might want to pursue a career in a particular area, and that might have to do with some of the inventories and surveys you've done throughout your high school experience. If you don't know what that is, but you do want to continue your studies, and again, be around like-minded individuals or explore different opportunities, college might be the right fit for you. So again, just be mindful that, you know, there are different opportunities aligned with different paths. And so that would be something to consider when you're planning for after high school.
May I
I
mention
also,
something?
please, and so I want to speak that to the audience too.
Yeah.
I already gave Ms. Schell the opportunity to check in with me and to add on to everything I have to say. I think that enriches the dialogue.
Yes. And, you know, again, I've been in the industry for 38 years, actually, professionally. And part of my background is financial aid as well. And I always speak to parents, and you had mentioned the word fit. Fit is a very, very big word in the college process from freshman year, sophomore, junior, and senior year in high school. But please understand, this is a fit for your student, academically, socially. It is a financial fit for the parent and the student. And I always encourage at any point before you begin that college search, have that conversation with your student. Talk about what the expectations are in regards to what you can feasibly expect to pay for a college education and what you are expecting from your student to contribute towards the education as well. I think it's really imperative that you have a discussion about that, because again, you will find that, you know, people forget about the financial aid aspect of the college search. And I always recommend too that when you're visiting a college campus, that you make an appointment with financial aid to talk about the kind of things, the forms, the do they meet a student's need 100%? Because the last thing that you need is your student being admitted to a college that is their absolute number one, and you can't afford it. So to me, that's all part of the college planning.
Thank you. And I think that's number 4. So that's the how and the what in the financial implications. So again, I really appreciate that lens. And we're going to kind of keep coming through different themes throughout. And I believe Ms. Schell is going to continue to give some great perspective. And so also in this current climate, we want to be really mindful of where students are comfortable. So you're thinking about, you know, the fit factors that might be aligned with those adult goals after college, right? But also, where do you learn and thrive? And so just being mindful, there's many different settings of higher ed institutions. And so that needs to be considered when you're reflecting on the things you would like to have in your college experience. Okay, so I'm actually going to hand off to Ms. Schell for the next few slides.
So again, it's all about the fit. And the major question, another word that you will be hearing over the course of the year or the next several is the word depends. I cannot again stress enough that students research all of the different schools that they're interested in. There's over 4,400 colleges and universities in the United States, and we're all different. Just in the Poughkeepsie area alone, we have Bard College, Marist College, Vassar College, the Culinary Institute of America, West Point. There is also a state university not too far. So within a small radius, there's a lot of colleges and universities, but we're all so different. So I highly, highly encourage that you do the research and get a sense and an idea if this is a field for you. If you have an opportunity to visit the campus, I highly recommend that you do that. You'll know the minute you step foot on if it's a fit for you. And these again are potential non-negotiable reasons why you would or would not go to the school. So again, will the community, the college or university that you go to, will they honor and respect you as an individual? Can you find people that have similar likes and dislikes that you do? Do they have clubs and organizations that you feel you would fit in right away? And the other thing is that the next one is climate. We're all different. Again, 2-year, 4-year, public, private, international, domestic, or urban, suburban, rural, East Coast, West Coast, Northern California, Southern California, all different types of weather. Even in the state of New York, we've got Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, pretty cold. We're so far downstate. Yes, we do have 4 seasons. Yes, we do get snow, but not to the scale that they do in northern New York or upstate New York, as I like to call it. So again, can you handle that? And I always recommend and suggest if that's going to be an issue for you, then visit the school during a time of year that you know is not going to be in the 80s, 70s, or 80s to get a sense of what it's like during that particular time of year. Again, is the college or university economically feasible and realistic for the family? As I mentioned earlier, when you are in the throes of the college search, many people do not even consider financial aid as an aspect of can I not send my student to the school that they really want to go to? So I really think it's so important. Even if you can't visit the school, reach out to somebody in financial aid and talk to them. Have a list of questions prepared. And of course, the big one is, does your school meet its students' need 100%? Because if they don't, then you're going to have to figure out where to come up with the additional resources to help finance that education. You want to make sure, are there scholarships and grants and other things that students can apply to? Check your local library, check the Chamber of Commerce, check your school website to see if there's additional resources, scholarships that your student can apply to. I just think that it's really important. Can my student work on campus? Sometimes when they're working on campus, which I love that they do, they learn a lot about time management, but they're also earning a paycheck, which means less time that they're asking you for money. And it does teach them a little bit of responsibility. How far you want to go? What is the radius that you're willing to travel? Again, my school's in New York. We're out here in California. That is a 6-hour plane ride. And then we are an hour and a half from New York City or the capital of Albany. I find students that go to Marist, they're willing to take a step outside the box. They want to try something different. They want to be close to a major city, but not in it. They want that traditional suburban college experience, and that's what we do offer. But again, for students that don't want to leave home, are you going to be a commuter at that particular school? And again, I think it's really important to do the research and see what kind of clubs and organizations a college or university offers their students. And, again, to get a sense and an idea of, well, maybe I do want to live on campus because the club meetings are at 9:30 at night because that's when classes are completely done for the day. But again, it's okay to commute if that's what you want to do. I wouldn't commute any further than an hour drive, which, that could be 15 miles here in Southern California. But I would kind of limit the distance. And, then again, you want to be by families, close family members or friends. And again, many times I hear from students interested in Marist, they want to go to New York because they have family there. And, if they want to go down for Thanksgiving or a long break, then, they have somebody there for them. So those are really, as it states here, non-negotiable. These are things that are incredibly important to you, and keep that in mind when you're doing your college search and research.
Just a little follow-up. I will say for many of our students, they are interested in local Cal States and UCs, and be mindful that some do have freshman requirements to live on campus. And so the local Cal State to North County is Cal State San Marcos. So the option of commuting might not be available. And so read that fine print when you're considering the financial feasibility of certain campuses. Because again, I think sometimes students think locally they might be able to access campuses from home, and that might not be the case. So just be mindful of that. And so this next slide, Corinne's going to speak to a really great resource that the U.S. Department of Education has available to compare the cost of attendance for different institutions.
Yeah, so I mean, I tend to be a data person, and I kind of go old fashioned where I would prefer to have everything laid out in front of me, and then to compare. So when you are starting to think about schools, what you can do through this college affordability, you can literally list all of the schools that you're interested in pursuing, and you'll be able to look at what the cost of attendance is, to get a sense and idea of what it's going to cost to go to the school there. Yes, you will more than likely be applying for financial aid, which hopefully you will be receiving some source of financial aid, whether it's from the federal, the state, or the college itself. But this is a great tool because when we're putting together cost of attendance, we're looking at tuition, fees, room, board, personal, travel, and books and personal. Because when you get to school, when you get your bill, you will receive a bill for tuition, fees, room, and board. You don't get a bill, those non-billable, for books, personal, and travel, but you will have to spend money in gas on a car. If your student is going to commute, you have to have a car. You have to have gas for the car. They're going to have a Starbucks or a, In-N-Out burger every once in a while. They will have to buy books, and as you know, books can be very expensive. And then depending on what their choice of major is, they may have to have supplies, whether it's for a fashion design program and they have to do the sewing machine and garments and fabric, or it could be studio art and they have to have all of the artistic things necessary, such as easel and paints and canvas. So those are all things that we put into the cost of attendance. But again, you're only going to have a bill which would have the tuition and fees, room, or board. But this enables you to, when you receive your financial aid packages, really get a good sense and idea that, okay, this is the cost of attendance minus the financial aid. The bottom line is what you would pretty much have to come up with to send your student to that particular school. Don't be fooled by some schools listing what they call as a PLUS, which is a parent loan for undergraduate studies. Sometimes it's very misleading, where a school will put down, a 20,000 PLS, and you're jumping up and down for joy, thinking that you've just been given $20,000. Well, no, you haven't. It's literally, they're telling you that you would be eligible to borrow $20,000 through the parent loan. So again, I'm not a fan of that. There are schools that do that, but this form will actually help you kind of figure out where to start in regards to, okay, these are the different costs to attend, and this is what my financial aid could be.
Yeah. And so a point, thank you so much, is that the federal government requires all institutions to have what's called a net price calculator. It is called different things, and it's located in different spots on these college websites. And so the U.S. Department of Ed, the College Navigator, allows you to compare them. And if you look at the box to the left, you'll see I included Cal State San Marcos, MiraCosta, UCSD, and University of San Diego as just a starting point. And you can compare quickly to get that estimated cost of attendance. And so this is part of that early conversation Ms. Schell was speaking to, that you want to really reflect on financially what's feasible as you start looking at institutions that are aligned with those best fit characteristics.
Yeah, and you mentioned that net price calculator. Hopefully that's what it's called on each of our college websites under our financial aid pages. And one of the things, I mean, I'm a private four-year liberal arts school. Our tuition is the same whether they're in-state or out of state. And we have flexibility in regards to financial aid packages. So I am a fan of them, but I'm not a fan of them in my situation because, again, I work with the students to help make it as affordable as possible. So if a family goes to that site and puts in all of the information that they're looking for, there are some schools would be like, nope, this is it. This is what you're getting. And other schools would be like, well, let's see what we can try to do working together.
Okay. We'll touch more on that throughout. Okay. So I think you're still on for the self-reflection questions. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do these too. I wasn't sure if you wanted to touch on these.
Yeah,
so
no. And again, I think this is important as well. What type of environment are you going to be most comfortable in? And I'm going back to New York. In New York City, you've got NYU, you have Marymount, you have Columbia. Those are city schools, great schools, but some of them, the campus is spread out all over New York City. And if your student feels comfortable in that type of environment, then by all means, go for it. But there are other students that, that love that traditional college campus with clubs and organizations and sporting events and that kind of sense of community. And I'm not saying that the schools in a city do not have that, but it is different. And you have to have that level of comfort. I did have a student from the Newport Beach area insistent that they wanted to be in New York City. That was their be all and end all. And then when she got down there for a summer program, right before like an orientation, next thing I know, she's bailing out of there and she's coming to Marist because of how uncomfortable she was really being in the city. So again, you have to figure out, where do you want to be? Then another thing is the size of the classrooms. Do you want that more personalized kind of relationship with a faculty member where you're in a class of 35 students and by second and third class they know you by name, easily accessible? Or are you just like, nope, I want to be in a class in a lecture hall that has 750 students. I'm happy doing that. So again, you have to figure out what are you more comfortable in. The research opportunities, again, do the research and see what kind of research opportunities a college or university will make available to you. I know that we're not a research university. However, when students come in as a freshman, they can do research, and we really encourage it across all disciplines. But you wouldn't know that unless you asked or did the research. So that's important. Internships can really set you apart. 87% of our students do internships while they're students at Marist. I love talking about my daughter. She was communications, advertising, public relations. She did 3 internships in New York City, graduated 2 months later, had a job in advertising. And I mention that because it's a highly competitive industry. But the fact that these students can do internships really does set them apart. And then again, are you willing to travel to get to a destination? There's international schools that students can take advantage of as an incoming freshman. But you have to make sure that it's the right fit. It's far away from home, different culture. But again, if you can do that, then by all means. And then what do you want from your college experience? Do you want to have that internship opportunity? Do you want to have that study abroad program? We work with students when they come in as a freshman with their academic advisor and the career center. And students are like, but I'm not graduating yet. I'm not looking for a job. What they do is they work with the student to help them figure out, okay, well, yes, I do want to study in Spain, or I do want to study in Spain and then in Hong Kong, and I want to do internships and blah, 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 blah. So they kind of map out a plan for the students. And then you also have to figure out, do I really want to move away? Yes, it's not a lifetime commitment. It is 4 years. You are home during the holidays, probably in the summer. But these are the kind of things that you have to ask yourself. Will I be comfortable in all of the above?
And a point I wanted to say too, well said, is if a student does want a different experience, they would like to study abroad, and they don't, institution doesn't have a specialized program, they work with another college to make sure that the students have access to it. So the study abroad programs are pretty expansive. And again, public schools work with private schools to ensure that students are supported. And there are different models of how you can study abroad, whether you're being taught by the faculty of the institution you attend, or you actually go to the university, local university in the country that you'd like to study. And so just know those opportunities exist anywhere. And so just know, again, where do we feel most comfortable, where we can find success at that college, right? And you can have those opportunities to, kind of expand your mind and your experiences through potentially study abroad and not necessarily committing to all 4 years. Because I'm sure Michelle can speak to, there are students that are very surprised if they decide they want to move out of state, move away from family and friends, to have that experience that maybe they're not necessarily comfortable. And we just want to kind of, as much as we can, reduce the transitions and make sure that students feel comfortable their first go around. That being said, we do have students that transition and transfer to different colleges in their future years, and that's okay too. But again, when we're thinking about fit and we're planning for post-secondary, we really want that first launch to be successful. And so just reflecting on, you can have many different opportunities from that grounding college that you ultimately choose to attend. And so again, coming back to those best fit features, so you have a list of schools that potentially are options that can support all those aspirations.
One other thing I would like to mention is, in regards to study abroad, check with the school and see again what kind of study abroad opportunities, if that's a big piece for you, because sometimes depending on where you go or what your major is, you may have to use elective credits, but the college university has people specifically that work with students in doing placement for them, so that we can get you out in the 4 years.
Okay. And I think this is your last slide for the moment, Ms. Schell.
So again, what you need to do too is to be incredibly realistic as far as where can I go to college. If Stanford is your, the be all and the end all, or USC is your number one choice, yet you have a 2.5 or 3.0 GPA, we're not going to stop you from applying to these schools. However, are you going to get in? And there is a school for every student clear across the country. And we are the Office of Admission. Our goal is to admit students. But when we're reviewing applications, one of the things that we're looking for is this student a fit for us, and are we a fit for them? And we review their transcripts, what they're taking in their senior year. Are they challenging themselves academically? We're looking at all of that. We are test optional. Again, you need to do the research of the schools you're looking at to see if they are or not. If students want to submit, one of the things I always encourage, every one of our colleges has a profile. And you can go and look at our profile and see what our incoming freshman class, what were they like academically? And we all pretty much will provide you with the middle 50% of what our accepted students had for GPA, the ACT, and the SAT score. So again, if we're a 3.2 to a 3.8, 25% were lower than 3.2 and 25% were higher than a 3.8. And if your student has a 2.4, 2.5, I'm not discouraging you from applying, but you have to be realistic and understand that there may be a chance you're not going to be admitted to the school. So I think that that's really important. And then, what are your goals? What is it that you want to get out of this education? And I think it's really important that you need to consider what is the most important theme in your college experience and how each school might set you up for success both during and after college. A couple of things that you can ask the school that you're looking at, again, doing the research, what is the percentage of students within 6 months of graduation? What is the percentage that are employed or in grad school? At Marist, it's 97%, and I attribute it not only to the strong education, but also those internship programs. So, those are the kind of things that you want to be looking at. Ask the schools you're looking at, what is your retention rate? What is the percentage of students that are returning after freshman year? If a rep says, 50%, an antenna should go up like, where are the half students going after freshman year? If it's 92%, then students are happy. And again, that's what you want to see. But I just think it's really important for you to align your qualifications academically with what the school is looking for in their applicant pool. So we do have that highly selective, and confident that you will be admissible to the school. So one of the things, and again, we can't tell you your student how many schools that they should apply to, but I really think it's more realistic if you have anywhere between 4 and 15 schools, which is a lot. College Board actually recommends that you have between 4 and 8 schools. And again, have a couple of schools that are of reach, a big reach, highly selective. Have a couple that are selective, and then of course have the ones that you are confident no matter what that you would be admissible to.
Okay, so we're going to segue into some tools and resources to organize this balanced and befitting college list. And so you might see some clip art, and throughout, these are comments made by Harvard University's Making Caring Common project. And for those that are not aware of this program, the whole premise is to support students feeling empowered and good about themselves and who they are through the admissions process. And so they have some really salient things to say. And so if you don't follow them on the social media platforms, you absolutely should consider it. Again, great perspectives that touches all facets of post-secondary planning to make students and families know that they're not just numbers, and it's really just kind of honoring the uniqueness that's every student and those big goals they have. And so they do underscore the notion of reframing the narrative. And so as you can tell, Michelle and I are being very intentional about our language choice when we talk about schools. And so there are some terms, I will not speak to them right now, but when we have the word dream school, we're taking away that sense of what's right for the individual applicant. And so we really do want them to reflect on these best fit features rather than just assume because a school has a certain prestige or ranking that takes away the personalization. And so we really do want to ground it in being mindful with the language choices of schools in which our best fit features or preferred best fit features are aligned with our qualifications. So we have lots of options after high school. And so something that I know Michelle is thinking, and I know I throughout this, is there are schools that would love to have your student, and they'll be great fits, and they'll give them money to attend. And so we do want students to strive for great things and be thoughtful as they plan their college list, but just know there's so many schools that are eager to potentially have your students on campus and be a part of the communities. I think you had made reference to the 4,400 institutions that exist in this country. And so I know for many of you, you're here because you don't know how you're going to research all 4,200 opportunities. And I'm going to segue into ways to kind of winnow down and refine kind of your search process so you can have that really confident list that you have lots of options. And so in reflection to some of the things we're saying, is really think about those non-negotiables. And so that might be largely driven by the financial piece. And we do want families, again, to have those early dialogues, just so that if a student is really excited about an institution and then gain admission, they're in a position where they can willingly accept, and it's in a financial situation that's supportive of the student and the family long term. We definitely encourage students and families to utilize the resources that exist, again, to narrow the search, because you don't have time to do the level of research into the institutions and to identify whether or not they're the fit for you. And so we are going to speak to some platforms and researches that you can use. There is a QR code, and so I have seen a couple questions in the chat. This is being recorded, and this will be available on the college and career website. But there is a YouTube video that shows you how to build a college list through Google. But there also are some platforms we're going to review that will support you in narrowing the search and has direct access to the institutions as well. We did speak to net price calculators and the U.S. Department of Education's College Navigator feature and affordability center. And so again, that's readily available. That should supplement your research, but also potentially drive, again, your investigation of opportunities. And then I did include this note. There are some platforms, and we're going to review them, but some platforms do have an element where institutions do pay to have their school populate first. And so we just want to be really mindful of how the information is populating. And then again, just be intentional about making sure that these searches are grounded in those best fit features for you, and you're doing a little bit more research rather than just going with the top 10 matches that might populate on a site. And then last but not least, we included number 5, to review and reassess colleges' interest throughout the cycle. And so the cycle is the investigation, the reflection on great fits for you, right? Submitting the application, and then subsequently hearing whether you have an offer or non-offer. And so I think oftentimes students think that they don't have any control in the situation, but in reality, students are choosing where to apply, and they're choosing where to accept and to attend. And so I do want to say, for our students that aren't happy with the opportunities that present themselves later in the cycle, there are opportunities, and Michelle can speak to this too, where colleges do open up applications later in the year, or they have rolling admissions. And the prior webinar spoke to that. And so just know opportunities do present themselves later. And so just constantly kind of come back to those best fit features where you think you're going to thrive and do your best. And then be open to new opportunities should they present themselves, or if upon submitting those applications, not having the offers that you're looking for, just know that there are other opportunities that present themselves as well. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Michelle?
Yeah, I just, overall, it's all about research. It's all about finding the right fit for the student. Quite often I do essay programs for high schools, and just like parents who want to help their student in the process, I have to sit on my hands when I'm reviewing the essays, because it's not my essay. I'm reviewing it to give advice and suggestions on what we may be looking for on the college side to help us understand more about the student. But again, I have to sit on the hands, because it's very easy for me to go, oh, give me your laptop. And then I'm revising it for the student. And that's not the right thing to do. Just like this is your student's adventure. And make sure that they're having fun in their school as well, and not just like, oh my God, I have to be the top of my class because I want to go to this particular school. Just show them the support. Don't have it become your mission to get your student into a school you want them to go to, because what's going to happen is they're not going to be happy, and they're going to blame you. I've seen it all too often where it becomes, well, I'm a graduate of a certain school, and I'm having my son or daughter apply there because that's where they need to go. Not necessarily. Ask them questions every now and then. How is it going? Is there anything that I can do to help you instead of taking control of it? So again, sit on your hands as I sit on my hands when I read the essays, and let them steer the ship. And you provide some guidance every once in a while, but not guidance telling them what to do, just guidance and suggestions.
All right, let's go into some of these resources. So we do like to encourage our students, specific to the California public universities, both the Cal State Apply, which is the application platform, as well as the UCOP application, have wonderful search tools. They allow you to narrow by the size of the campus, the cost of attendance, because they do differ, the majors that are available, the selectivity. And so we do have these as examples, and we definitely encourage our students to look at these as kind of the gold standard for the searching of the public universities. That doesn't mean that these institutions aren't populating on other search entities and platforms, but really you want to, specific to the public universities in California, use these because they have a host of many, many features that will help students kind of compare the institutions. And then also they can gather a sense as to whether or not they're competitive for the institution. So please start there. And you can note that I did some circling and arrows to make it a little more simple for families to navigate. Okay, some additional California-centric platforms. We do have assist.org, this website, which isn't as commonly recommended, but what's really great about this is for many of our students, they have community college credits, they receive credit through CTE programs, and so there are articulations as to where the credit is recognized in different institutions, colleges. And so you definitely want to be mindful of that because that supports a student's application, especially in the realm of academic rigor, preparedness. And then also when they matriculate to the college, what courses are going to count for various credits. And so that's a great platform to consider. As well as California community colleges. They also have a host of resources, not just for the community colleges. And so this is all the community colleges in the state of California. They also have resources for transfer agreements with larger public institutions, as well as potentially private institutions across the state of California and the nation. So again, these are free platforms that can help your student once they identify those best fit, looking at majors that are available on campuses, as well as looking at, or rather reflecting on the coursework they've taken and looking at how it will transfer to the institutions they plan to attend.
May I just kind of jump in there very quickly
Yes.
in regards to transfer? I used to work as transfer as well. If you are planning on sending your student to a community college to get quote an associate's degree or their freshman year, you want them to go there because they really don't know what they want. And most students really don't. My thought is most 17, 18-year-olds, when they're filling out an application, they really don't know. They're kind of all over the place. And even if they're like, yes, this is what I want, they may get into it and a couple of classes later, they're like, no, I'm out. But if you're planning on sending the student to the community college, yet the goal is the student wants to go to, say, University of Michigan or, Penn State in a particular major, my suggestion would be look on the pages of the schools that they may be going to see if they offer those kind of classes and what the requirements would be if they want to major in, say, electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or chemistry or this and that, so that you're preparing yourself and you're taking the correct classes that would be transferable. Because the last thing you want to do is to tack on another couple of years because when they transferred, a majority of the classes didn't transfer. I know that doesn't happen in the Californias, but if your student is looking at a state, that's my suggestion.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a wonderful suggestion. So a platform that most commonly we recommend, and so again, this work, it supports your site counselors. And so when the families attend the post-secondary planning sessions, whether it be through the college and career night or the senior presentations, they will definitely recommend Big Futures is a free platform hosted by College Board. And so that's going to help you narrow the search, right, based off of those best fit features. Something to be mindful of, and this is because I like to, log on as a student to see what will happen for our student population. If you want specificity as to the competitiveness of your application, meaning the matching data, they will ask for SAT, ACT, and the GPA. And so something to be mindful of for many of our students, the Cal State's UCs, they don't require a standardized test score. whereas some institutions throughout the country may. And so again, we do refer our students to the fairtest.org organization, and that's also referenced on our College and Career Center, as well as in prior and future webinars. But just know that that's something that some of our students might not have that data. And so that might not make this platform as accessible, but I would say a platform like Big Futures is great in the sense that, again, we're going to take 4,400 institutions and we're going to winnow it down based off of the size of the school, the major, the location, and so on. And then that financial piece you can further investigate as well. And so we definitely encourage students, again, to let the platforms do the work for them in, again, helping to establish and create that list. And so they do have a college list builder feature. Our district also has that Google option as well. So whatever families are most comfortable with. And so I've included this slide, and we're kind of getting short on time, so I want to make sure that we can answer all the questions. But I included this slide because the National Association of Collegiate Admissions Counseling is an organization that guides the work of high school level individuals in admissions, as well as the admissions officers themselves in the colleges. Michelle and I met through this organization, and so they have really great resources to support families. And so I circled that guide to college admissions process. It is a hefty text. I believe it's an 80-page text that really talks through all the facets. This is a public, not-for-profit entity that gives a really good perspective. And then also it's kind of the guiding principles that we have when we're supporting students through admissions and post-secondary planning. And so we definitely like to refer families to that, as well as the Western Association of College Admissions Counselors. That organization is the Western subset. And so they host college fairs. And so the college fair that's most upcoming in the local areas, there will be a college fair in which it's great for students to pre-register so they can scan institutions that they're interested in. And that will occur at Scripps Ranch on March 23rd. And so you can access that through the strivefair.com, or you can just go to the WACAC site or NACAC. And so it's always funny when us counselors start talking abbreviations. But again, we all folks, both on the high school desk as well as the admissions desk, NACAC and WACAC are where we refer to. Okay, so we still have a few slides, and so thank you for everyone for bearing with us. And so we've spoken to this notion of selectivity and aligning the qualifications. And so we've reflected on those best fit features that are really critical for our success, where we're comfortable, financially it's feasible and whatnot. But the thing that we really do want to encourage students, and I know Michelle will nod her head, schools would love to have your students join the community. But we want to make sure students have options. And so we do want to support students putting as much energy looking into schools where their academic qualifications align with that profile that's available on the college webpage. And put that time in so they are excited when they get that offer. And so I hesitate when I use the word safety because in reality, like that doesn't give that positive kind of perspective of like, that's a school we're thrilled to get into. And so we really do want to encourage students to be very mindful that the schools that we're confident their academic qualifications are aligned and they match, put that energy in so you have a good number of schools as options through the admissions cycle. Now, when we kind of transition into the discussion of selective colleges, this is purely a statistical kind of notion in regards to there are institutions that only admit 25% of applicants. And so that's where you really do want to look at the college profile of the admitted student. Please understand that every student and applicant is different. And so just being mindful that if your academic qualifications aren't closely aligned and it's a school that has higher selectivity, meaning the number of applications they receive and the number they admit, might not be a match for your student. So again, putting most emphasis on those schools we're excited to attend, our qualifications align. Should you apply to those schools, those names, those campuses that maybe are more selective? Absolutely, but just be mindful of the time that it takes to submit a thoughtfully completed and thorough application, because that's going to be the most competitive for a student, right? And then we have the highly selective group. And so for many of our families are really excited. These are the names we've been talking about and reflecting on for many years. Just be mindful with selectivity under 15%, 10%, under 5%. We have many institutions. I think this year Harvard is under 4%, right, Michelle? So just being aware that, you know, despite your student having wonderful qualifications and presenting themselves to the best of their ability, they might not get an offer of admission. And so think about the time, the heart invested in those applications. And so we do want students to aspire to great things. And should they want to apply to some highly selective schools, absolutely consider it, but just be very mindful as the applicant as to where your qualifications align. Because again, we really do want students to have many options they're really excited about through the admissions process. And so just putting that extra time and as much energy looking at those schools that your qualifications align will position you to have those options. And should you have an opportunity at a more selective institution and you're excited and it's financially feasible, then you'll be thrilled to go. And then you also have some other options. Michelle,
And
is there anything you want to add?
yeah, make sure that you're looking at deadlines. As you mentioned, some schools have rolling admissions, so they'll just continuously accept applications. But many of our schools also have strict deadlines that if a student is interested in applying regular decision or early action or early decision, again, there will be deadlines and then their applications will be reviewed. And then notification would pretty much come out at the same time, depending on what it is.
So I love that point that you brought up deadlines, and it's a follow-up to the prior webinar. But I would say sometimes there's a misnomer in our community that rushing an application, simply getting it in sooner, makes you more competitive. That's not the case historically with American colleges. I will say internationally, there are some university systems that there is a priority, but within American system, for the most part, if there's a deadline, they are going to hold to that deadline. So you do need to mind the deadlines, again, with your best prepared, most thoroughly completed application. So you feel confident through the process too. So you want to feel good about putting that application forward that has the essay that you spent the time in, and you really thoughtfully responded to all of the extracurriculars that you have to include and whatnot. So again, please be mindful of the level of selectivity when you're considering different options. Again, the goal is to have different colleges available to your student upon hearing back from the institutions. Okay, so rankings. Wow, we do cover a lot in this presentation. So just being mindful, and I think for many of us, we have heard of different entities. Actually, New York Times today in the California section, they spoke to the revamped US News rankings and how they're looking at more indicators for social mobility. And so all we want families to be mindful of as potential applicants is where the data comes from. And so it's very common for families to associate a high ranking with a value or reputation that's going to help their student have a successful long life. And that's not necessarily the case. As Michelle spoke to, having those enriching experiences, knowing professors, internships, having those opportunities typically translate to that. And so just knowing that there are resources that allow you to compare institutions without any kind of influence, and that also clearly articulate where the data is coming from. And so I do like to refer families back to the U.S. Department of Ed. There is a college scorecard, and I'm going to show you a screenshot in a moment that shows you the graduation rate, the median income, and so after graduation, the cost of attendance, and so on. And so again, just using that information to be an informed applicant. And so I know it seems like a lot of resources, but I think, again, if we're grounded in those best fit features, reflecting on that experience you want to have, having honest financial discussions, and then using resources that are unbiased, right, to provide information to help guide those decisions and as to where you're going to apply. And so here are a couple resources. So we have the U.S. Department of Ed College Scorecard. Education Trusts is a not-for-profit entity that just looks at different indicators. Again, it's published so you can see what they're looking at. Also for some of our families, the campus safety and security tool. And so I'm sure Michelle would speak to that too, especially for institutions. That's a big one. Our families might be having students go away for the first time, and that sense of safety and security, that information is readily available. And so we want to make sure that families know they can access that information before they apply or attend a college.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is just a quick screenshot of the college scorecard. So again, I just quickly search schools that are local to where we are, close to Encinitas. And so you'll see quite a few populate, and then again, you can sort. And so let these resources narrow the search and allow you to confirm that these institutions have all the characteristics you're looking for in that next educational experience that you want to have. Okay, so Real quick, we do want to have a conversation. I know there's some families who are like, I just want the number. I think Michelle actually said a number. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, in my role, I hesitate to give a number because I really want students to self-reflect and put that energy into those institutions in which the qualifications very much align. But we do want to be mindful, and Harvard speaks this very articulately, just understanding that when you apply to more schools and you have, applications 30 or more, you're actually driving the statistics down, and it makes it a little bit more confusing, I think, not just for your student, but for future applicant classes. And so let's just be mindful that your student can do the work to find schools that, again, they'd be thrilled to have your student and have plenty of opportunities. And I think I'm going to segue into Michelle just for these final slides.
So again, just make sure that your qualifications academically fit into what the college or university's profile is. If you have any questions, again, view the website. You have a great resource in the College and Career Center at the schools that your students go to. Be mindful of the number of applications, as I mentioned earlier. College Board just says pretty much 4 to 8 colleges and universities to apply to. However, that's your call, whatever you want to do. And then the application cost does add up. Not every student qualifies for an application fee waiver. And, the average is about $75 an application. So that can really add up very quickly. And the other thing is that you want to make sure that each of the schools that your student is looking at, that they fill out that application completely, especially if it's being reviewed holistically. In the case of my school, we do review a student's application holistically. So we do look at the letters of recommendation, the essay, the supplement. We look at the high school transcripts, how the grade's gone, up, down, status quo, all over the place. We're looking at, again, that strength of the curriculum senior year. And again, the activities that the student has done over the course of their 4 years. So, and I mention that because I have read students where our supplemental is why Marist. University of Richmond used to have described spiders. And if anybody is aware that the University of Richmond's mascot is a spider. So if the student didn't do the research and is writing about that creepy crawly thing on the ground, then they obviously didn't know Richmond very well. They don't use that one anymore, but I love that one because that to me is a true reflection of a student learning more about the college or university. So again, I just think that keep your list minimal, and if you need to add a couple more, by all means, go ahead. But make sure that you're completing that application and answering the questions that the college or university is looking for. Because again, we are the Office of Admission. We want to admit you. However, we are looking for the fit. Again, a fit for you and a fit for us. And there is a fit for you out there somewhere. You just have to find it.
A few follow-up comments. And so that intentionality when it comes to essays and thoroughly completing the applications for many of our students, they struggle if they're not balanced with their senior academic coursework, and the extracurriculars are very meaningful for them. And so we do want students to try to have that sense of balance in senior year. What I've seen as a counselor is students will try and take their response to the insight question from the UCs and plug it into the Common App essay or back and forth. And again, that's kind of speaking to what Michelle spoke to is, again, there needs to be some intentionality with how students respond to the questions, so that hopefully they can have positive results and or they're just confidently putting that application forward. And so part of this process is the psychological game of, again, self-reflecting and then submitting those applications. Did I do enough? And the waiting. And we really just want students and families to feel confident that they've done the work. And so again, when you keep that college list really focused on those things that are most important, and you put the time in, you're going to feel more confident throughout the process, and it will translate to positive results. Okay, so we have some additional perspectives. Again, I haven't said it in this presentation, but I always equate this as a rite of passage for our young people. For many of them, it's that first big transition. And for families, you start having the talk about when you go away to college at a young age. I was telling Michelle, my 9-year-old, we have that conversation. And she's asked me whether or not she can take the cat along. And so just know that this is a common dialogue within our, in a domestic community, and just being mindful that there are things you can do to reflect on opportunities and then to navigate the process in a balanced way. And so there are some folks that really give some really salient perspectives, almost comical perspectives. I really enjoy the Dartmouth College Missions Beat podcast. Really just, this is an admissions officer just reflecting on the process and giving some tips for students and families. And so just know that that's a resource. Also, Brennan Barnard, he's the director of ConLab schools in the Bay Area, as well as he hosts a Forbes column that talks all facets of admissions. And so not just for students, also for families upon making decision, leaving the nest and so on. And so these resources are readily available, and it normalizes, I'm going to use the word humanizes the experience, because again, it is emotional. We want your students to have plenty of opportunities. And I know families really do cherish this experience, and they want the best for their students to ensure their future success. And just know that you can gain some perspective by referencing these other resources. And then also we do have the text by Lauren Pope. So Colleges That Change Lives and Looking Beyond the Ivies. Hopefully Michelle doesn't mind me saying this, but these books do speak to, again, looking at the opportunities of some smaller schools for students and really being student focused. It's not to say that larger institutions don't have the same focus, but it just looks a little different. And so there are some other references that might give you some perspective. And then last but not least, Frank Bruni, who used to write for New York Times, now a Duke professor. He wrote a book, Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be, an antidote to the college admissions mania. Sorry, I know that's strong language, but really, again, we want students and families to feel empowered, that they can absolutely identify schools that are befitting, that have all the characteristics they're looking for, financially are feasible. And again, we're thrilled to have your students, and meaning they will give scholarships and grants to those students to support their attendance. And so just know that there are many perspectives. I will say we are flooded with perspectives. We are recommending the ones, again, that we do find bring humility to the process and are a really salient kind of perspective onto focusing on the strengths of the student. And so we do need to transition to a Q&A. I see 13 questions I'd love to respond to. And so, Michelle, if there's anything you want to add in our closing, I will offer up questions that are more your perspective from higher ed, or I'll respond to the questions directly that are more the high school level.
Yeah, I mean, however you want to do it is fine with me.
Okay, so I'm going to...
I did answer a couple of them.
So I'm just going to go down sequentially. So for those that populated questions, thank you for your patience. And so I have a question about, is it smart to have all you see on college applications? I'm not sure if this is speaking to checking the boxes for all the UC campuses. And so their application platform is a single application. And so this kind of goes back to assessing the fit of the school, looking at the selectivity of the institution. There are some institutions that are more selective. I think Michelle spoke to, depending on a program, there could be some selectivity there. That was a question also we received. Just being mindful that when you check the boxes, again, it's not necessarily going to improve your chances of admission. You want to really be thoughtful and do the research of the institution. There are quite a few questions about, will there be this be available in the future? Yes, of course, it's recorded. And so I believe this is going to be sent out. And then I believe someone asked for a PDF, of course. I think our thumbnails might have covered up some of the QR codes. And again, feel free to chime in at any point, Michelle. There is a question about clarifying about commuting to a local school. So in San Diego, if you're north, I believe, of the 56, and San Diego State will clearly articulate this, you are not considered a local student, so you actually are required to live on campus. And so that's doing the research. For some families, they might not be able to pay for room and board on campus. And so being mindful of that. And so you definitely want to refer to the College Navigator and compare the different campuses if you think you might be in a situation where you are not wanting to pay for housing, you want to live at home. And so just be mindful that there are some requirements of different institutions. And so yeah, just refer to that. Michelle, you look like you want to respond to that.
No, I'm just
Okay.
reading them.
Okay, there was a question about the website to evaluate total college costs. So again, it's estimated, so be mindful of that. And so every institution is required by law to have something that allows you to evaluate it. The comparison factor that's hosted by the U.S. Department of Education is the College Affordability and Transparency Center. And then the actual feature that I showed the screenshot of was the College Navigator. And what's great about that is you can perpetually compare 4 schools at a time with estimated cost of attendance. So Michelle articulated, there are additional costs, the cost of art supplies, food, depending on, what your student might be eating and how to stay healthy, right, when they're on campus. So just know that this is a really good starting point. You definitely want to refer to the institutions. And then if there's a subsequent admission offer with the cost of attendance there, that's going to be more of the specifics. But definitely want to begin with that comparison on the College Navigator. And that's how you compare different institutions pretty quickly. But you can also reference the individual schools themselves. What is the Harvard social media platform you mentioned? So the initiative from Harvard is the Making Caring Common project. And so the initial kind of motivation to start this initiative began with this notion of college admissions really kind of quantifying students and not looking at who they are. And then also this race, this rush, this competition to get into these highly selective institutions, and this loss of focus on the uniqueness and the celebration of the individuals, the high school students. And so every student brings so much to any campus community, and they are wonderful humans and contributors. And we really do want students to feel empowered to know that they're unique, they're special, and they're not just a number, and they're not just a non-offer or an offer to a college. And so that's the initiative. And so you can find that on social media. And so Instagram, they also have a suite of curricula that's associated with schools. They have some initiatives too that support schools and kind of grounding folks on caring about others and not just focusing on, how to forward oneself in the competitive race of college admissions. I see a very important question, which isn't necessarily college list specific, and I'm probably going to do maybe 5 more minutes because we are running over. Is it true that California universities are no longer requiring the SAT, ACT? That is correct. They will not receive a standardized test score, the University of California or the Cal States. Here's the big but though. For many of our families, if they're considering institutions that might look at them or might require them, which there are some. And again, that's all available and well reported on the individual college website, as well as the application platform and fairtest.org. Those institutions, you might want to consider, taking a test. But for our students that are focusing on the Cal States and UCs, no test score is required, nor will be reviewed. Oh, I like this question. How many hours in general is needed for a college application? It depends on the application. I always encourage students from the lens of a high school counselor. One, you're going to use those resources. Your high school counselors have quite a bit of support and resources, application workshops. So the actual data entry and the creation in the application platform, I should probably know this, Michelle. Marist is a Common App school, right? Yes. So the creation and the data input of putting in the grades, because you're going to report that transcript, without distractions, maybe an hour, but when you're taking a time to refine the general essay of the Common App, and then the supplemental question about why Marist, and you want to articulate and show your interest, what you'll bring to the community, that could take much longer. And so it's hard for me to say, 1 + 2 hours of essay completion. You want that iterative process, and you want to be able to engage trusted folks to give their perspective. And then again, feel really confident through the process. So I encourage students to take advantage of all the resources, the workshops the availability that the high school counselors have available for free for students. Also, it's really great about those moments. Students learn from each other in those workshops. A question that Megan Corazza might pose might help Miss Corinne Schell and her application. And so again, that social learning that takes place in those workshops is a really beautiful thing. And it's very, I think, empowering to the students, and also it's kind of normalizing. And so definitely take advantage of those resources that are available at the San Diego Union High School sites.
Yeah,
Oh.
and in regards to those essays, again, that's a tool that the students have to tell us about themselves. Provide us with a little bit more information about maybe how they've handled a particular situation. You know, and students of that age tend to write pretty much about similar things, whether it's a divorce, a death, a grandparents, a sports injury. But make sure you're answering the question that is being asked of the student. In the supplements, more than likely it's going to be why a particular school. Don't put down, well, I like the psychology program. That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is that you've done the research on that school. So maybe talk about the research opportunities that you read about and the kind of internships that the students are doing in that particular field, and the kind of jobs that they're getting upon graduation. I mean, those are the kind of things that we're looking at. It's just like going up to somebody in a college fair or asking a college rep, how's your psychology program? That's not what we want to answer, because nobody's going to say, oh, it's terrible. Everybody will be like, oh, that's great. So again, have the very well thought out questions when you're speaking or writing your essay.
There are two last questions I kind of want to address, and they kind of go together. So there was a question about Common Up essays, and then also, can we do this on our own without the support of an independent counselor? Again, I have been a public high school counselor and private school counselor for 20 years. I do believe in the resources and the support of the site counselors. I know my colleagues in San Diego, they're very intentional about the information they put out and the support they provide. And so if the student puts the energy into researching the schools that are aligned with those best fit features, they will be thoroughly versed as to those deadlines, and they will have spent the time on the websites identifying those unique features of the psychology programs. And so I do have the belief that young people will absolutely be successful through the application process. And parents, please give them the opportunity, the agency to complete the applications and to manage that. Now, since it is their first go around, and I know for families it can be very emotional, you can have those check-ins with them, but really our students do have the capacity and the resources that exist through the site counselors of San Diego, as well as the college and career fair and those resources on the website. They're really exceptional, and they're really expansive. And so those resources exist, and we do want families to feel like they can do this with the support that's available through the schools. I also want to say too, all these application platforms that we keep referencing, there is a litany of resources. So for Common App, they have a YouTube series of, the essays and whatnot, but the specifics to the institutions and what they're looking for, that would be found on the institution's website. So I'm going to conclude with, we are so happy to support students and families through this process. Please refer to your site school counselors, as well as take advantage of the many resources that exist. Hopefully your students and your families feel empowered. There's so many institutions that we're thrilled to have your student. They will enrich the community, and they subsequently will have many opportunities. So just put the time in doing the research for the schools that have all those best fit features. And I feel really confident you'll have some opportunities. Michelle, is there anything you want to add?
No, I just, again, this is the student's journey, and just be there to support them and yeah, just encourage them.
Okay, so good evening, and I will say goodbye, and then I'm gonna leave this meeting. And so thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And again, this will be emailed out as a video recording. Take care.
All right, take care. Bye.